Speaker this morning, Sunshine D. from Long Beach.
Good morning, AALA 2011. My name is Sunshine D, and I'm an alcoholic. And I do that as a symbol of just opening up and allowing Spirit to work through me, to use me as a channel to simply speak whatever words it wishes to speak through me, that I might fulfill our tradition, that our primary purpose is to stay sober and carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Welcome to those who are new. Congratulations to our people who celebrated birthdays, especially I think Mark, who celebrated 9 years and got his big book here 9 years ago. Congratulations, that is awesome. So Patrick, with 3 days, you get to see the hope of what happens when we just stay, when we implore, and when we pick up that book and read it, when we apply the principles, when we study it and use it as a textbook, and when we simply surrender to a way of life that is for good. So I can tell you that I'm nervous, right? So I always say when I'm nervous like this, is God shaking the truth out of me. How grateful I am to be here before you to share my experience, strength, and hope. It is indeed a privilege, and this privilege has been granted to me through Alcoholics Anonymous, that it has given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. I can tell you that I grew up in the Bronx in the 60s. Yeah. And interestingly enough, my father died when I was 4 years old. He died of a heroin overdose. So right from the jump, I was already missing a parent. Searching for that love that he would provide, I was missing that. Once my father died, of course, my mother, longing for his loving arms and his protection and his support, she too was absent. Not on purpose, but simply because she was mourning and grieving. And as a child growing up, somehow or another, I thought it was my fault. What's a 4-year-old to think? When a parent dies, when lies are happening all around us, when, in fact, I'm being told as we're at the funeral that your dad's just sleeping. But he never wakes up. He never comes home. He never embraces me or holds me again. He never tells me how beautiful and how wonderful I am. He never tells me about the cannon that he wants to buy when I grow up to shoot at the door just in case any callers come for me. I definitely miss my dad, and definitely miss the love that my mom provided at that time. I was searching and longing to fill a void. And because there was a void there, what started happening was I started looking for love, looking for all the places where I can indeed find a place of fulfillment, not knowing and not being taught yet that that place of fulfillment was already within me. So kept looking and searching on the outside. In fact, I started developing destructive tendencies, pulling at my toenails, pulling on my hair, getting into fights at school, somehow or another seeking for attention, seeking for love, seeking to be wanted and admired. Somebody just see me, someone just acknowledge me, someone hear me. Then I found that I can do that by being the teacher's pet. So of course I'm going to be really, really good. I remember in the 3rd grade telling Miss Kesselman, who I adored, oh my gosh, she was fine. I remember when it hit me and I was like, wow, I like her. And my seat was in the back. And I remember she was coming by, giving us papers, and I would sit up like this for her, and I said, Miss Kesselman, I'm not going to be a chatterbox no more. And I was in love, and I would do whatever it was that she would say. I was a teacher's pet, and I got all the attention and all the love and the accolades. It was incredible. But I remember Miss Kesselman left, and I wondered what happened to her. And then there we were in the 4th grade. We went to the Bronx Zoo. And all of a sudden, we were all in a pack, and somebody saw Miss Kesselman, and they said, there's Miss Kesselman, Miss Kesselman. And everybody ran, and I ran too, because, of course, I was in love, and I wanted to see her. And she was pushing a baby carriage. I was crushed. How dare she go off, get married, have children, and leave me? They tell us our disease is that of selfishness and self-centeredness, and definitely had that way before the first drink. Again, developing destructive tendencies is what we do, and it's definitely what I did. I remember just being happy to see her and just kind of going away, going, wow, where, not even recognizing, but thinking, where am I going to find love now? Where, what's going to happen for me? I remember excelling in track and running. I used to run really, really fast and get medals and go to tournaments and stuff like that. One of my best lessons was running track and field. And I remember being in Brooklyn one year, and I thought it was about how much money we had, or the clothes that we had, or things like that. Like, I started really reaching for the outside things, the material things, to make me feel better. And back in the day growing up, if you had the Converse high tops or Pro-Keds, you had it going on, and it showed that your family had some wealth. I grew up in the South Bronx, so, we had to try to keep up above the rest, So I remember being at the starting line and looking over at the other shoes that the girls were running in, and they were skipperoos. They're called Vans now, but we call them skipperoos. They were like no frill tennis shoes, sneakers. And I remember laughing inside and going, ha, 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 they can't win with that. Because I got the sneakers that make me fly, and they cost a lot of money. That's what my mama told me, right? They cost a lot of money. It don't grow on trees. And next thing you know, that gun goes off, on your mark, get set, go, and they left me in the dust. I learned really fast that it's not about money, it's not about, prestige, it's not about any of that kind of stuff, And I was really disappointed, because I had really been putting my trust in material things and, really been putting my trust in all the stuff on the outside. I got to tell you that growing up in the Bronx and growing up Puerto Rican, the cool thing about it, our claim to fame was Bacardi. Because Bacardi is Puerto Rican rum, and it's strong and it's good, and, what the family would drink is Bacardi and Coke, and even when the kids were teething, don't worry, just put a little Bacardi on their gums, it'll help to numb it. It was medicinal, and it was, a spirit that people love to drink. And so I remember going to my godmother's house growing up, and she lived in this co-op building on the 19th floor in the Bronx, and she was the hostess with the mostest. That's where I really learned a lot about people who drank, and I really saw alcoholism at its best, but didn't know that it was alcoholism at the time. And so imagine with me, me being a kid, me and my little sister and my mom, and we would go visit my grandmother, and sure enough, we'd, ring the bell, they'd buzz us in the building, and we'd go up on the elevator for 19 floors. And Puerto Ricans are loud, by the way. It's a stereotype that I like to keep going. And sure enough, the elevator doors opened, and you could hear, and it was it was salsa music, and it was playing. You could hear it as soon as the elevator doors opened, and she lived way, way down the hall, and her door was closed. And so we would, we knew where to go. We just followed the music, and even before we rang her bell or knocked on the door, she'd open the door. Mira, negrita, ¿cómo está? Entra, mamita, ven, entra, entra. Ay, negrita, ¿cómo está? Mama, mírate. I love my godmother. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. She was already sloshed, And she was the hostess with the mostest. I mean, she had, full bar. She knew what people like to drink. That whole concept is the glass half empty or half full. If it was halfway anything, she'd refill it for you. She knew what you were drinking, and she always made sure that everybody, had a great time, and she was indeed the life of the party. And, the kids, we would go hang out in her son's room and watch, basketball or TV or just kind of play games in there. And every now and then I'd peek out because they'd be laughing and they'd be really loud. And it's like, what's going on over there? I want to be over there where the fun is. They sound like they're having a really good time. And I could see people walk in, cool, calm, collected, very respectful. And, after a couple of hours, they were just like sloshed and on the sofa. Some of them were hanging on the balcony. Some of them were peeing in the corner. I mean, it was incredible to watch the transformation that happens when this, what I called, this juice, this elixir, whatever it was that they were drinking in these fancy cups, these glasses, once they ingested that, they changed. They changed and they got louder and louder, and it was more fun. At least it seemed more fun. But after a while, it was like, what happened to, it's kind of weird. But I remember wanting to be approved of, wanting to be heard, wanted to be seen, wanted to be loved. And so at the end of the evening, I was helpful. And I would help clean up, and I would get these glasses and, as soon as I'd kind of turn the corner and nobody was looking, I would just kind of swig some of that watered down whatever it was. And it tasted nasty and it was bitter going down. But I remember this sense of, I think I'm dizzy now. I can't really feel myself. I feel a little numb, a little tingly. And I remember wanting to go to my godmother's house and help, even before the party was over, because I wanted that feeling. All of a sudden, it didn't matter if anybody saw me or heard me. All of a sudden, it didn't matter, because there was something happening inside of me that said that it's okay, and that I'm okay, and that I'm going to be okay. I remember growing up as well, my dad was dark-skinned like me. And my mom's light skin, my sister's light skin, my grandmother's light skin. And I remember my younger sister telling me, we found you in the trash can. And you were so dirty, we couldn't wash the dirt off of you. And she's my baby sister. I don't know where she got this from, really. What I knew is that because I believed it, it contributed to my feelings of loneliness, my feeling of being unaccepted, that maybe this indeed is not my family, that maybe indeed I am an outcast. I remember growing up having a crush on Miss Kesselman. I remember growing up watching all the other little girls in school have boyfriends, and I wanted a girlfriend. I remember being called tomboy. I remember being, told that I was different and that I was strange. And because I believed it, it contributed to my low self-esteem. It contributed to my choosing, again, tendencies that were destructive instead of tendencies that were life-affirming. No wonder it was so easy to find pleasure in the alcohol. No wonder it was so easy to find pleasure in some of the other destructive tendencies that I had. It was the only thing that said, I'm okay. I belong. I remember by the time I was in high school coming out. In high school, they knew me as Sunshine. She held the door open so the rest of us couldn't come out of the closet. And I remember taking pride. I remember taking pride in that because it was kind of like, I want to be who I am. Let me have the freedom to express. But I was doing that with liquid courage. I was doing that by putting other chemicals in my body. I was doing that with this false sense of pride, with this sense of rebellion instead of this sense of just true freedom. Here's who I am. Accept me, see me, hear me. I got sober at a very young age, y'all. Well, not very, very young, but I was 23. And I remember making my first geographic after high school. I remember in school I could see little New York on the right side of the map. You know, sometimes depending on the map, it would have an arrow and New York would be in the Atlantic Ocean, New York, and then it was like New York here. And I would see big old California on the left side of the map. And my mom would watch television. She'd watch like Annette Funicello and Frankie, and they'd be, you know, dancing on the beach, and that was California, and the kids would drive their cars to high school, and I used to think and fantasize, now that's for me. So when I turned 18, I made my first geographic to California. See, I left home when I was 16. My mom found out I was gay. We grew up Jehovah's Witnesses. I won't say a thing. And I was told that to be gay was an abomination. I was told that it was unnatural. I was told that I could no longer be a part of this Christian fellowship. And so I was disfellowshipped. I remember coming home one day and I had my suitcase in the garage. I went to the garage and I came up in the house and my mom said, "You going somewhere?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm leaving. You always told me that if I was going to live under your household, under your roof, that I would have to live by your rules and your regulations. And I just can't do that anymore. I just can't live like this anymore. I'm going to go." And she let me go. She let me go, and I moved in with my lover at the time, and sure enough, things got worse. My drinking got worse and worse and worse, and here I am, a teenager, kind of going to school during the day. I have an after-school job so that I can provide a little bit of food and contribute to where I'm living, and after a while, I got my own place when I was 17, and I remember kind of fake finishing school at 18, you know, kind of going through that whole graduation process and walking down, but my name is never on a diploma or in the program or anything like that, just to kind of show my folks, hey, you know, I'm finishing school. But I never did. I hadn't. You know, but I was too ashamed. I wanted my mom to be proud. She had remarried when I was 8 years old, and I had 2 stepbrothers. You know, so besides the spiritual abuse, the abuse that I received as a Jehovah's Witness growing up, I was also sexually abused by my stepbrothers. And so it was pretty easy for me to leave home. It was pretty easy for me to just kind of get away from that atmosphere. And of course, my drinking career progressed more and more. When I finally came out to California, I was 18 years old. I didn't do my homework because out here you got to be 21 to drink. Who knew? In New York, I mean, you know, it's 18, but if you're 16 and look 18, it's okay. And, you know, I had all the booze and everything I wanted to in New York, and I would go out to the clubs and party in the Village and kind of, do whatever I wanted to. But when I came out to California at 18, it was kind of different. It was like, can't go to the clubs because you got to be 21, can't buy booze because you got to be 21. So, of course, my drinking career took a curve, and I started participating in other party favors, and, of course, drinking was always the thing to do. It was always present. It was always my very first thing that I reached for was picking up that drink. I burned a lot of bridges here in the early 80s, in 81 when I came. I remember the Olympics were coming in 1984, and I lived in Inglewood, California. And Inglewood, California was going to house the Olympics, because the Great Western Forum was there, the racetrack was there, and all of a sudden, all of my friends and all of the people I was hanging out with, Mr. B's liquor store, all of a sudden it all started getting cleaned up. What's going on here? People started getting arrested. I'm looking around for my friends, they're not around, and it's because they're getting picked up and they're getting arrested. And it's because the Olympics are coming to town, and they can't show that Inglewood, California is a dump filled with dope fiends and alcoholics and just low-life people. I'm like, where are all my friends? I got scared. I got scared. So, of course, I made a geographic back to New York. I made that geographic back to New York, and I'm so grateful for that geographic. A lot of times, we look at what we call geographics and we think that they're bad. Or, I look at my life today and I'm so grateful to know that I'm an alcoholic. I'm so grateful that I have this dis-ease because it has given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. It has given me a brand new way of living because of it. And so I say that because I went back to New York on another geographic, and I remember having my apartment, and I remember going to work, and I remember that I was drinking and doing other things, and I remember going to work selling massage pillows. Y'all know those massage pillows, the ones when you lean on them, they start to vibrate. Well, what a great job for an alcoholic, because we could sell a snow cone to an Eskimo. And sure enough, I was selling these massage pillows day in, day out. I got paid cash, and I can go and cop and go to the liquor store, get what I needed, and come home and chill. But I remember one morning, early one morning, I went to work. Get on the subway, go to work. I do a little something before I leave. And sure enough, I don't feel anything until I get to work. And there we are sitting in circles, kind of like sometimes we do in some of our AA meetings, and I'm just kind of nodding off. And it's time to go to work, and my boss, and it's kind of cool. This job was really kind of cool because it's kind of like AA, because they would be like, we want to thank Digby. He sold 30 pillows. Yay, 30 pillows. And so-and-so, Pharaoh sold 60 pillows. And we'd be like congratulating people and cheering. And so it was a lot like AA meeting. It was kind of weird. I had never been to AA, but interestingly enough, my boss taps me on the shoulder on my way out and says, you're loaded, you're under the influence, we can't let you go out to work today. And I said, no, I'm just really tired. I got to go to work, I got to pay my light bill. My lights have been off for months. I hadn't paid a light bill. I needed to pay the liquor store bill that I had so I can get some more. And sure enough, he said, well, I'll let you go if you promise to go to some meetings with me. And for me, I said, promotion. He wants me to go to some meetings. That's important. Finally, somebody's recognizing, Oh, delusion, huh? So sure enough, I said, yeah, sure, no problem, no worries. I go out to work that day. I come back, and about a week goes by, and I'm thinking he forgot about it. I forgot about it. No big deal. And sure enough, I get paid one day. I'm getting ready to leave. And he taps me on the shoulder. He says, remember those meetings I told you about? Yeah, let's go. So we get on the subway and we go somewhere in Manhattan. And it's a 12-step meeting. And all of y'all are there. Every last one of you. Y'all are laughing and ain't nothing funny. Y'all drinking a lot of coffee and smoking cigarettes. Y'all telling some sad, sorry, sob stories. And then y'all say, keep coming back. And I go, why? Why? For what? Keep coming back for this? Are you kidding me? By the way y'all were laughing, I knew some of y'all wasn't really sober. And so, of course, I was on a mission to find those of you who weren't. And, I thought that it was in the coffee, And I would drink a lot of coffee and just kind of be amped from the caffeine. I remember they would be like, we want to thank Sal for making the coffee. And I go, Sal, okay, I got to hook up with Sal. He got the hookup. And as butch as I was, I'd be like, hi, Sal. I was willing to go to any lengths. All Sal had was some coffee. Then I noticed that they gave chips at the meetings, and back east, it's the white chips and the red chips and so I said, that's it. I got to get in the in crowd. I got to get a chip, So I remember going to a meeting one night and I got a 30-day chip, and then I went the next night and took a 60-day chip. I didn't know I had to wait like 30 days in between, even to fake it, I didn't know. So it wasn't the chips, and after a while, I just kind of figured that y'all were telling the truth and that you were on this natural elation and that you have found a way of living that was working for you. But I wasn't ready for Alcoholics Anonymous at that time. I still had some drinking to do. I still had to prove that I was not like you. I still had to try to find something, and I don't even know what I was searching for, but I still had to find it outside of myself. And I remember coming back to California in December of 1985. Another geographic, another hostage. She had no clue of my alcoholism, of my addiction, of how desperate I was, of how my destructive tendencies were not only going to ruin her life, but how they were going to ruin my life as well. No clue whatsoever. And I remember landing in Inglewood, California, and I was looking for my old playmates because I was in my old playground. And though the faces had changed, all the spots had resumed. Mr. B's liquor store was still there, and I remember emerging remorsefully after a 3-day spree. I remember how pitiful I felt. I remember how it was that I had to explain to this woman who came out to California with me from New York that this is what I do from time to time, get used to it. But I remember those meetings that I had gone to. And I remember trying really, really hard to get back or to at least try those meetings again. I remember going to Centinela Hospital with my girlfriend at the time. And sure enough, that's where I met one of my long-term friends till today, Michelle P., who's in the audience. And it was a hospital program meeting. And sure enough, she saw me and my girlfriend walking in arm in arm, and she said, New Yorkers. And she came up, she goes, hi, I'm Michelle, I'm an alcoholic. One of the best things that have ever happened to me was meeting Michelle. She connected me to other meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, a sponsor. I remember going into that hospital program because I'm one of those alcoholics who just can't get sober by coming to meetings. I needed professional help. I remember trying to get sober to save my job, to save my relationship, to please my family, but it just didn't work. So if you're here because you have a court card, if you're here because you're trying to save a relationship, if you're here because your family has pushed you here, be here for you. Because half measures availed me nothing. Because I was here for someone else, I wasn't here for me. I didn't think I needed this, but sure enough, if you thought that I did, hey, I'm going to come. I'm going to try to people please, because if I people please, then you love me. Then I'm fulfilling that need. I have attention. Someone's paying attention to me. Someone hears me. Someone sees me. But it wasn't done yet. It wasn't done until January of 1987. And in the meantime, I had gotten to go to meetings, and my sponsor at the time even started a women's meeting in AALA that I would go to over and over again. And it was the weirdest thing because, sure enough, it was almost like, you know how you can count on the sun coming up in the morning and seeing it? It was almost like at that 5 o'clock meeting, you can count on sunshine being the newcomer, you know, and sitting in the back row, because it'd be like, any newcomers? And it was almost like slow motion. Everybody would turn around. And I'd be standing up. Because it's all about me, you know. It's all about me, right? You know, the good news was that I kept hearing, keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. And that was a story that they kept telling me. And somehow unconditional love was being shown to me, but I just couldn't accept it. So my bottom. I remember being out on a spree that the big book talks about. 3-4 days, not coming home, not showering, not bathing, alcohol just reeking from my body, enjoying other party favors. At least I thought I was enjoying them, but gosh, it was hell. I'm going to tell you what it felt like. I'm going to describe it for you. So if you're comfortable, you can gently close your eyes, but you don't have to. But imagine in your mind's eye a stray dog that's been hit by a car, so it has a limp. And imagine patches of hair missing throughout this dog's body, and that it has its tail tucked between its legs, and that it's wandering aimlessly. It has fleas, so it's constantly scratching and sores and just looks pitiful. Well, what you've just imagined is a little bit of what I felt like on my bottom. After emerging 4 days later and kind of coming to some place with somebody, and it wasn't my home, and I don't know what I did with my job and all of that. I remember making some desperate phone calls to my sponsor, and I remember getting back into that hospital program. And I remember when I finally got a hold of my sponsor, I said, I need help. I need help. And she asked me 2 questions. The first question was, are you tired? Are you tired? Yeah. Yes, I'm tired. I just described to you what it felt like. I'm tired. Get me out of this misery. I can't, my life is unmanageable. I don't know how to do this. And her second question to me was, are you willing to go to any lengths for your recovery? And the answer was clearly yes. I'm willing to do whatever it is that you say do, whatever it is the big book says does, whatever it is the group of drunks, whatever it is Alcoholics Anonymous says to do, I'm willing to go to any lengths. And it was at that moment and that surrender that was the turning point in my life. From that hospital program, I went into the Alcoholism Center for Women. And there's a few women that are here that saw me my first few days when I walked in. I was skinny and underweight, and my cheeks were all sucked in, but I thought I was God's gift to women. One of my counselors used to call me the doctor of love because I was still trying to mac, and I looked pitiful. But I was willing to go to any lengths. I remember the first night I slept on the sofa because somebody was supposed to leave and I was supposed to come in and take her bed, but it just didn't happen, and I didn't care. I was willing to go to any lengths. They told me I had to stay there for 90 days. I don't care. I'm willing to go to any lengths. I remember, though, still trying to hold on to my old ways and my old ideas. I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but it's all that I had. It's all that I knew. It's the only way I knew how to behave. But I was willing to go to any lengths because anytime they would point something out to me, even though I might seem like, oh, I don't want to do this, it was like, I'm willing to do it. I have to. If they told me there's two pails right there of horse manure, pick it up and walk around the block 10 times, I was beating you to those 2 pails of horse manure. Because if you told me it was going to help keep me sober, then I was willing to do it. I remember that I lived in one house at ACW, and the other house was where we had our classes. And I still wanted to look good because I felt so bad on the inside that I was ironing my clothes every day like I was going to work. I had razor sharp, creases in my clothes. And I remember after being there for a few weeks, the counselor said, oh, no, you're hiding. You're hiding behind this outward appearance. We really need to get into what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what's going on. And I remember they made me go up to the attic where we would keep the donations. We used to call it Saks Fifth Attic. And all of our donations would come there, and for those women who didn't have clothes, and I had clothes. So I was like, dang, why did they make me? And I'd go up there and I'd get like the most wrinkled shirt, the most wrinkled pants, and I'd have to wear wrinkled clothes back and forth. And it was hard, but I was willing. I didn't know what it all meant. I was new. What is this all about? But they were teaching me a new way of living. They opened up that book. And they began reading from the book. They took us to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. They encouraged us to get a sponsor. I was so willing to do whatever it took. I remember getting out and my sponsor immediately starting me on a program of action. We had a big book study, like workshop, and it was like, this is what we're going to do. And I remember her taking me to that first page of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and she said, what do you notice about this page? It's blank. There's nothing on it. It's the first, open the cover. She said, yep, that's right. And that's what you know, nothing. You know nothing. Come in with a blank slate, clean slate. You have no clue what you're about to learn and uncover. And I remember going to the next page, and it talks about the story of how thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And that was a promise. That was the first hope, the first promise. And that's back in the day when we had our AA symbol. And she began to break down the AA symbol and how important our recovery was. That's why it was the base. And to hold up that triangle was our service. And she began to really break everything down to me. We had a dictionary and a highlighter and a pencil. And we began with the foreword to the first edition. And in that foreword to the first edition, it told me that the purpose of the book was precisely, to show me precisely. That word precisely means exactly. And it was in curvy writing, that italicized, which anytime anything is italicized, it means pay attention to this. It also means I'm very gay, so look at me. I like italics. It says pay attention. It's not just your regular block letters. It's special. And we began to study that book. And I knew that the purpose was for it to show me precisely how to recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. It just seems like we're doomed to an alcoholic death or jails or institutions, but it doesn't have to be that way. In this program of recovery that my sponsor took me through, right through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, we went through the doctor's opinion, where I got an opportunity to learn that not only is my body sick, not only do I have a physical allergy, that when this alcohol is in my body reacts differently. I'm allergic to it. It doesn't process it correctly. But it also told me that my mind was just as abnormal as my body. And here in the doctor's opinion, it began to tell me about a solution to this allergy and to this malady in my head. It began to tell me that there's a spiritual solution. And that my disease, though it is of mind and body, it is of a spiritual malady. And that was the solution to this dis-ease called alcoholism. And as I began to read Bill's story, even though, here's this white, heterosexual male that I could go, I don't identify with him, I began to look for the similarities. And all of a sudden, I started to see how he was working the steps, how he was using the steps that we now have in his life and how it played out. I began to see that there were so many things that we had in common, even though we were so different. My sponsor started to point out to me that if I simply pick up the spiritual tools that had been laid at my feet, that I too could have a life beyond my wildest drunken dreams. It is amazing the transformation that has happened simply because there's been this willingness to adapt and adopt a way of life that has its benefits for all. Growing up Jehovah's Witness, I had a problem when it came to the G-O-D up on those 12 steps, higher power, because that's all I knew. But it came time to where I was told, you can have a God of your own understanding, not your misunderstanding. And so I began to write down qualities of what I wanted God to be like, what I wanted to feel. And though it has changed from then to now, what I can tell you is that because I did what was put in front of me, because somehow or another there was this willingness to surrender my way of thinking and my behavior to Alcoholics Anonymous, to a God of my own understanding, my life is different. I remember wanting to come out to California to be rich and famous. And indeed, because of Alcoholics Anonymous, my life is so rich. I began to look at my character effects or my character defects. I began to see how these defects of character were actually a result of my misthinking. We're taught that 5% of our problem is our drinking and the other 95% is our thinking. And so what Alcoholics Anonymous has given me the opportunity to do is to adjust my thinking and to do it on purpose. The level of our serenity is in direct proportion to our thinking. So if I'm experiencing turmoil and grief, and if I'm experiencing struggle and strife, Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me that by simply changing my perception, that my life can change. See, once upon a time, all I saw was myself as this drinking, low-life individual, not a contributing member to society, not productive. And because of Alcoholics Anonymous, there was the hope. So now I'm not, the physical manifestation of alcoholism, so I'm not drinking now. Put down the drink. But there's so much more that happens as a result of the steps. I mean, for me, when I was out there, I was a mad dog. Give me whatever. I was a trash can. You know, if you told me, hey, sunshine, see this suppository right here? If you stick this up your butt, you're going to get loaded. I'm the first one with my pants down. But it's the same way now in Alcoholics Anonymous. If you say, y'all are so bad. What I mean by that is that if you tell me, hey, sunshine, if you do this, you're going to feel better. If you do this, if you live these steps, if you incorporate this way of life, your life is going to change for the better. See, this is a spiritual program, and for me that word spiritual, it means life-affirming. Not religious, but spiritual, life-affirming. So we have a spiritual program. We have a life-affirming program, which means that not only do we come in and we learn how not to drink one day at a time, but we also get to learn how to stop behaving in the manner that we were behaving that was destructive in the first place. Because we get an opportunity to do some introspective work. We get an opportunity to look at these character defects. You know, in the 12 and 12, they call them like the 7 deadly sins. And all of them, as we think about gluttony and sloth, and we think about lust or envy or pride, either, you know, those things right there are either about an excess, having too much of, or lack thereof. And what Alcoholics Anonymous shows me how to do is how to have balance, how to have serenity, how to have this calmness, how to live a life in flow. And it's because in our second and third step, we come to believe that there's a power greater than ourselves. Up until this point, we've been totally relying on our own self, on our own ideas, on our own thoughts. And it has gotten us nowhere. But until we get to steps 2 and 3 and we really recognize that there's a power greater than ourselves that could restore us to sanity, and if we simply turn our thinking and our behavior over to this care of God, this higher power, and I'm not talking about a deity that's judging us, I'm talking about a loving, energetic presence, this creative intelligence that the Big Book says is deep down within every man, woman, and child, is the fundamental idea of God. It tells me right there in my own Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous that God can be found, that the great reality can be found deep within. And all this time I had been relying on myself and looking on the outside, looking for love, looking for I don't even know what. I was looking for it outside. I was looking for it in a drink. And all along it's been right here. And even though it had been covered up with doubt, with fear, with believing the stuff that my sister told me, or that school taught me, or that religion taught me, what I got a chance to do here in Alcoholics Anonymous is uncover all that stuff. And find out and shed the light on it and say, this is not even the truth of who I am. I am somebody. And I'm an equal somebody to everybody. I'm not better than or less than. This program has taught us how to live right-sized. Not from a place of excess or from a place of lack and limitation, but from a place of balance. This program has given me the opportunity to look people in the eye and know, golly, I didn't rip this person off last night. I didn't steal your wallet and then help you try to look for it. You know? As a result of doing this introspective work and admitting to God and to ourselves and to another human being the exact natures of our wrong, we began to look at our wrongs. I began to look at what I did not like. And then I began to look at what I did like. I began to look at what's the opposite of this, because I don't want to focus on these character defects or character effects. I want to develop character traits. Humility, calmness, respect, being humble, being kind, being generous of heart. This is what I want to focus on. And so when I do a 10-step, I look for where I've been generous, where I've been kind, where could I have done a better job. And all throughout, it's really been an opportunity to really look at our conscious contact with God. You know, our prayer and meditation doesn't start in step 11. It starts when we finally find a power greater than ourselves. And we begin a relationship with this internal, powerful presence. Some of us call it our conscience. Let your conscience be your guide. Some of us call it that still small voice. And a lot of us used to drink that still small voice away. And as a result of physical sobriety, it begins to come back. It begins to get a little bit louder, and it begins to guide us. And so for me, as I daily surrender to this inner navigation system, my inner GPS, I find that things work out for good because I'm not struggling or fighting against anything. I'm simply allowing the spirit, this energetic that has created everything, to live in, through, and as me, and to live in, through, and as you. So I can't screw you over, because right where you are is the presence of this creative intelligence. Right where you are, God is. And this is what Alcoholics Anonymous has given me. It's given me a spiritual way of life, a life-affirming way of living, that which promotes life, not that which promotes destruction. So these old habits, these old ideas, the quote-unquote 7 deadly sins, they continue to show up in my life, but because I'm sober today, I get an opportunity to look at them at another level. I remember I was just coming from Kentucky. As I finish up here, I was coming from Kentucky a couple weeks ago, and I fell asleep on the plane. I woke up and I said, oh, now's a good time to go to the bathroom. And so I go to the bathroom on the plane, and I notice that there is a plethora of Sandy wipes. Just boxes and boxes of Sandy wipes. And without even thinking about it, I grab a bunch of Sandy wipes and I put them in my pocket. Some of you might go, yeah, what's wrong with that? I do that with Splenda. And I'm just speaking for me. At this stage of the game in my sobriety, I look for ways in which I continue to affirm my abundance, my joy, my health, my goodness. You know, when I took those Sandy wipes, I wasn't even thinking about it. But the next day when I found them in my pocket, I thought to myself, what was I thinking? And I wasn't thinking. I just, did some old behavior, which obviously wasn't old behavior because I was still doing it. And as I sat with it, I could have beat myself up, but I thought to myself, those Sandy wipes are there because people need to use them. They're there for the next flight, for other people. You know, my job is simply to use one, dispose of it, and leave the rest for the other people who it's there for. Like when the flight attendants put it in, or the cabin crew, they didn't be like, oh, we're going to put some extra in here for Sunshine because she's going to take it. Like, that's not what it was intended for. And so I get to see where I still steal from life, where I still operate from a place of lack and limitation, like I'm going to really need those Sandy wipes. So for a week, I put them in my back pocket, and every time I sat down, I had this bulge, and I was reminded of the era of my thought. Not so that I could be sadomasochist, but just so that I might be a little more conscious of how I'm living. Because that's the way greed shows up in my life today. And so I get to look at it. That's the way my alcoholism shows up at 24 years of sobriety. Still trying to creep in and say, destroy life, destructive behaviors, And so consciously, I get an opportunity to correct that thinking. And that's why our program is a daily program. When we're disturbed, it says to say the Serenity Prayer. Our book is filled with prayers and promises and principles that we get to live and experience and attain to have and to be. And it just doesn't stop because we stop drinking. We get to really, truly live a life beyond our wildest dreams. And so I'll end, as I like to end, with a quick story about a cake. And some of you have heard this before. But before I tell that story, I want to tell you that my life is indeed rich. I've been in a beautiful relationship for 13 and a half years. And we don't beat each other up or call each other names or engage in any destructive behaviors that would cause us harm or cause each other harm or cause the people around us harm. Today I'm a productive member of society. Today I contribute not only to Alcoholics Anonymous, but to the world around me. Today, as a result of Alcoholics Anonymous, I can walk with a dignity, and I say dignity not from a sense of conceit or pride, but just a simple knowing that we are indeed one, that I'm not better than or less than, that I am simply right size and walking this path. Today, as a result of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm able to help and I'm able to be helped. And that's huge. Because so many times we just want to give and deplete ourselves, and that's unhealthy. Today it really is about balance. And so my life is indebted to Alcoholics Anonymous, to all of you, to all of the people who came and who walked before me, those of you who unselfishly have shared this program, who have shared your time and your energy, who told me keep coming back, and especially to those of you who are new to Alcoholics Anonymous, because the only way we get to keep it is to give it away. So my analogy and my story is this. I bake a cake and you like it. And you go, dang, Sunshine, that's a good cake. Let me have the recipe. And I go home and I write down the recipe. I write it out for you. And you take it home. You go, I'm going to make some sunshine cake. I'm going to make some sunshine cake. And there you are in your kitchen, and it says, use 2 cups of milk. Milk? I don't like milk. I'm going to use orange juice. And so you pour in 2 cups of orange juice. And the recipe says, use a teaspoon of sugar. Sugar. I like sugar. A teaspoon's not enough. I'm going to use a cup of sugar. You throw in a cup of sugar. Well, you see where I'm going with this, right? You're not going to get the same cake. Why? Because you didn't follow the recipe. And it's the same thing with Alcoholics Anonymous. The first 100 men and women, sat down to write our book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And in it has the recipe for life. And all we get to do is follow the direction. And when we follow the direction, we too will have a slice of the life that the first 100 men and women wrote about and lived about and share about. You will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. You will surely meet some of us in the fellowship of the Spirit. I know that because we have decided to be here this weekend, and I know that because we are one, or they say 6 degrees of separation, I know that somewhere in here our lineage has touched that lineage of Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob, of Ebby, of the so many men and women that were there in the first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, those who helped to write our book, that we might live a sober life. I am indebted to you, and I am so grateful and honored that I have been asked to share my story with you. Thank you.